Look at that. Cherry plum. Last to go and first to come. And a reminder that spring's just around the corner. Every week in the garden now, a few more flowers are opening. On this week's Gardener's World, Gay Search is tempted by hybrid hellebores and carpets of cyclamen at Ashwood Nurseries. Pippa Greenwood returns to her trials at King's Heath Park in Birmingham. While in California, Stephen Lacey meets Jay Griffiths, garden designer to the stars. It's not been quite as warm as California in my Hampshire garden, but at least we've managed to get the summer house finished in the shade garden. There's a solid deck underneath your feet and a solid roof over your head, and it's capped now with an orb-shaped finial I managed to find in the local timber yard. What I'm really pleased about is that it cost me about £350, which is half the price of a similar sized structure you'd buy ready-made and a darn sight stronger. What I want to do now is to finish off the paths. The trenches are already dug to take the concrete that'll support those little upright logs that are my edging, and in the middle of both paths here I've put a little deck. It's a kind of island that you come to, and I can stand a pot on it and perhaps plonk another seat on. On either side of the path I want to plant really densely with shade-loving plants, but there is no earthly point in working soil that looks like this. You've got to wait until it's dried out a bit. Instead, I'm going to go to where it's even wetter. The wildlife pond is doing very nicely, thank you very much. But what does happen this time of year is that all the leaves that have fallen in during autumn and winter start to rot, and you need to get them out. So it's a case of fishing around for hours of innocent amusement with a little fishing net like this. If you don't get them out, they ferment and they can turn the water sour, and wildlife doesn't tend to like it too much, especially fish. So just get out whatever you can. Then you can turn your attention to the sides of the pond. It's very important that the margins of a wildlife pond slope gradually down to the water to allow egress, as they say, for all the wildlife. They can hop in and out quite easily without falling off the edge of a rock. Frogs, for instance, to spawn. And it's work because there's a great dollop of the stuff over there. But birds need to come and drink, so do hedgehogs. And a rocky edge that's like a cliff face can be dangerous. They can fall in and not get out again. So here, the pond liner is beginning to show. It's never a pretty sight, so it needs covering up with earth. You can use garden soil if you want, but here it's a bit rooty. I've got plants right next to it. I'm going to use instead aquatic compost. It looks and feels just like John Innes, but there's no fertiliser in it to foul the water and turn it green. You can spread it about 2 inches thick, just to mask that thing. You can even pat it down a bit if you want. And then the water will be absorbed up it by capillary action. It'll mask the liner, and for best results, plant things quite close to it. They put their roots into it and hold it more stable. All I need to do now is tip the bucket of leaves out again. Has it gone barking, you're asking yourself? No, not really. I just want to leave that pile there for half an hour, because if there's anything gone in it, like a newt or a frog, it can crawl back in the water, and then I can clear the leaves up and put them on the compost heap. It's not the jolliest job, and it's not the driest or the warmest job at this time of year, but gardeners keep at it all the year round, as they do at the award-winning Ashwood Nurseries at Kings Winford in the Midlands.
Every gardener loves plants, but for some people they become an all-consuming passion, their livelihood, their hobby, their life. 32 years ago, an 18-year-old lad started work here in the family business the day after he left school. Then it was just a shed and a small greenhouse. Today, while it has all the trappings of a thriving modern garden centre, it resolutely remains Ashwood Nurseries, because here plants are king, bred, raised and nurtured in the old traditional way. John Massey is absolutely passionate about plants, and that's why Ashwood is such a magnet for equally passionate gardeners from all over the country. Well, John, you have not a single horticultural qualification to your name, yet you run this phenomenally successful nursery here. What's the secret? How do you do it?
I think it's love of plants, a wonderful team, a lot of inspiration from a lot of great sort of growers, just eye for detail, I suppose.
So you grow a lot of your own plants here, don't you?
Yeah, we try to grow as many as possible, and I suppose we started off with the specialist breeding lines about 20 years ago with Lewisias, then with hardy cyclamen, and now on to hellebores.
Yeah, they really are giving a lovely show, aren't they?
Oh, they're wonderful garden plants.
Yeah. What was it about hellebores that you fell in love with?
I think the tremendous possibilities. You've got almost every colour under the sun, from white, blacks, pinks, yellows, and the goalposts keep changing because now there's semi-doubles, doubles.
So what's the secret of growing hellebores successfully in the garden, John?
The main thing, I think, is that you prepare your ground really well. They like humus-rich, moist but well-drained soil. Hellebores are happy in either acid or lime, quite honestly, but they don't particularly like peat. You know, leaf mould is much, much better.
In days gone by, you know, gardeners in autumn would have thought, oh, this has died, I'll chop it down to ground level and tidy up. Look what they'd have missed. I've loved looking at this right the way through the winter, but if you look down the bottom now, you see that the new shoots are already beginning to grow. I need to get in with the shears and get this right off at ground level. You can do it as close to the soil as you possibly can, pulling away the grass as you cut it off. And there you can see these new shoots revealed in all their glory. Don't worry if you cut a bit of the tops off, they'll soon come back. This is a lovely variegated grass called gardener's garters, which is striped with green, white, I wonder whether it's a bit chilly, pink. All gone, ready for a new year. Epimedium, or bishop's hat, needs the same treatment, and here it's vital that you chop off these leaves and their stalks before the flowers emerge, and you can see them curling up here like shepherd's crooks. I just got here in the nick of time. It's not just border perennials that can be cut back now. Some shrubs, like this dogwood midwinter fire with its bright stems, can be cut right down to the ground, but I tend to do that every other year. I'm leaving them standing this year. But this is a shrub I do prune every year, Buddleia davidii, black knight, with those lovely tassels of purple flower on the end. It needs cutting back really hard if it's to produce those new shoots. Look for a bud like this one about a foot off the ground and cut just above it. It's one of the most satisfying jobs you can do in your garden, this. You feel like an absolute butcher by the time you get to the end of it. You do feel you've achieved something. Of course, you could say, why do I have to cut all that wood off? Why can't I just let it keep growing taller? Well, if you do, the flowers end up at skyscraper height rather than at your head height, and you can't really see them. So not only does it give you great physical satisfaction doing this, it does mean that come next summer, you'll be able to see these flowers without a stepladder. She's left her own kitchen garden behind this week. She's gone to King's Heath Park in Birmingham to look at her horticultural trials.
Towards the end of the last series, I set up a mini trial here at King's Heath Park to compare various different grades of lawn seed and turf to see exactly what you do get for your money. Now, 6 months on, I'm back to see how things are developing, and we're already getting some interesting results. I chose 2 which were hard-wearing, 2 to produce a fine, luxurious effect, and 2 to create a lawn in double quick time. First, the hard-wearing. The hard-wearing turf has produced a gorgeous, almost constant green sward with no gaps in it at all. The hard-wearing grass seed has produced a pretty good effect. There are a few small gaps, but I reckon they may close over once the season gets going. The luxury turf has produced a really fantastic, fine, green and very dense sward. There's a tiny bit of yellowing, but that's really only due to the time of year. Well, I know where I don't want to be doing my sunbathing this summer. The fine lawn seed mixture has produced something with about as much bare earth as it has grass. The fast germinating grass seed has produced a lawn which is, well, rather patchy, and there's a fair amount of bare earth in there. The pre-germinated grass seed, quite a lot of bare earth showing through, although the grasses themselves are growing quite well. At the moment, the hard-wearing and luxury turfed areas are looking by far the best, with the fine-grade lawn seed lagging a long way behind. But it has been a particularly wet and grotty winter, so I'll be back in a few months to see how everything's shaped up once we've got through the spring. In the meantime, I'm going to forget sowing lawn seed and get on and set up my next trial using some of the new types of flower seed available. It can be really frustrating if you try and grow plants from seed and end up with far fewer than you had expected. It's certainly wound me up in the past. So in this trial, I'm going to take a look at some of the new types of seed which are available. Primed or pre-germinated seed has been taken through the first 2 stages of germination. When you buy it, that makes it particularly useful for seeds which are often quite difficult to germinate, like verbena. With that, you expect to get about 50 to 60% germination. With the prime seed, they reckon you'll get a full 70 to 80%. I'm also going to do a trial using a primed version of impatiens or busy Lizzie. There you normally expect about 60 to 70% germination, but with the primed seeds, they reckon you'll get a full 90%. Now, the price difference with these seeds is around about 15% more than standard seeds of the same variety, so I, for one, am going to expect at least 15% more plants for my money. Now, if you've had problems with damping off of your seedlings, that awful business where no sooner have the seedlings appeared in the seed tray than they start to keel over and die, it may be well worth your while investing in some seeds which have been specially treated with a fungicide to help ward off the disease. I'm using geranium pulsar mixed here, but you can get these treated seeds for various other flowers, including lobelia, and I'm certainly going to want to have a go with some lobelia because, as far as I'm concerned, lobelia and damping off often seem to go hand in hand. Label in and into the propagator.
Now, time for garden cuttings.
If you're thinking of planting a tree this year, why not plant 2? Then you can make yourself your own living arch. It couldn't be easier. You've just got to plant 2 trees, in this case paperbark birch, very suitable for a larger garden, a door's width apart, and then just joining them together with a tree tie to make a Gothic doorway. The tree ties will only need to stay on for 2 or 3 years until the trees have assumed the right position, and there we are. The Gothic arch in architecture was inspired by crossing oak branches, and so here's a perfect example of a living Gothic arch. You could grow a pyramid with a leg of lime at each corner. You could use sorbus, mountain ash, they make a perfect arch. The wonderful buds look like witches' fingernails. This makes a door and a window, and a much better use for Leyland cypress than blocking out your neighbour's light. These are my laburnum ladies. The twigs are so pliable, they don't need any ties. If I sit in this chair long enough, the aspen will grow around me.
The Queen of Climbers, that's what they call Clematis, and you can see why. She's incredibly beautiful. But a lot of people think you can only plant Clematis up a wall. I think they're rather boring up walls. I like to see them scrambling and skittering through shrubs, like this grey-leaved Senecio here. And this is a brand new Clematis that I want to try in this position. It's called Avalanche. It's got evergreen leaves that are beautifully cut. As you can see, a welter of flowers about to come on the top there. Now, it's container grown, so I'm hoping it's got a good root system. Don't knock the top off, Alan. Tap it out. There it comes. Look at that. Wonderful. And without disturbing it, don't disturb the root ball plant to me. Into the hole. Lower it in. Firm it down. I've worked plenty of muck into the bottom. I'm going to work more into the soil as I firm it back with my fingers and my fork, because it's a bit wet. Now, if this were a large flowered clematis, I'd be planting it 3 or 4 inches deeper than this, so its stem was well down in the soil to make it more resistant to clematis wilt, that nasty disease they can get. The smaller flowered types don't tend to get it as much, so this kind of planting should be fine. I've left the cane on and worked it in towards the shrub so it can scramble away. But what all clematises love is a cool root run. And for that, you need a couple of bits of stone. This is a guaranteed way of making a clematis happy. Put them alongside the base of the plant like that to shelter the soil from the sun. And in April and May, young avalanche here, there'll be a cascade of white flowers all over Miss Anisio. That's one way of growing a clematis not up a wall, but there's another one. You can grow clematis in containers. I don't know why more people don't do it, as long as the container is a decent size. You can use a large pot, or in this case, a wooden tub with drainage holes in the bottom. And I'm using inside it John Innes No. 2 potting compost. It'll retain the moisture really well, which is what clematis, of course, like. The clematis I'm planting here is a variety of Clematis texensis called Grave-Tie Beauty. Well established in its pot, out it comes. The thing about these texensis hybrids is they're very elegant, bell-shaped flowers instead of those big sort of floppy large flowers. These are crimson maroon sort of colour, and I can get 2 of these plants in one tub. The other good thing about texensis varieties is that pruning's simple. The New Year's shoots come from below ground level, so you can get rid of all this growth. You can take the canes out now because they're not needed. And to keep those roots cool, in this case, gravel. But he's taken the canes away. What are they going to grow up? I've got something far prettier planned. An obelisk. 4 triangles of trellis and some short lengths of plastic-coated wire are all you need to turn this into something a bit special. Put it in position, water it in, and wait for the shoots to come up. And if you don't believe that they will, just look at the one I prepared earlier. There they are. They're going to wreathe this obelisk in flowers during the summer when the sun comes out. Stephen Lacey isn't having to wait that long for his spot of sun. Here's his last report from California.
Los Angeles, this concrete sprawl fringed with beaches and palm trees and coated with glitter. What's important here is image. Looking beautiful, getting noticed. And that's something that's carried beyond the sports cars and the facelifts out into the garden too.
One designer guaranteed to cut the right image for you is Jay Griffiths. Even his work studio in Venice grabs you from the street. And from here, he puts the wow factor into gardens for the elite of LA, from the socialites to the movie stars.
My clients love to party. My office here is set up that it looks as though there's a party going on all the time. Clients want it all. They want to be in yesteryear, tomorrow. They want to be anywhere else. They want to be on another planet, another country. They want to be someplace else, not necessarily in Los Angeles in a very urban environment. This garden here is sort of our chemistry set. We play here, we plant different things, we experiment. We look at different paving materials and all the ins and outs of our trade and play with them here.
Gardens are much more places to live in over here, aren't they, than for us?
The weather lends itself to that, and there's a real history here of whole outdoor living. Every room inside, we do the complement outside. We try to recycle materials on site as much as possible. All this paving here is all recycled concrete. This fireplace back here is also made out of recycled concrete.
That's a bit of a motif of yours, isn't it?
They say the heart of the home is the hearth, and same goes for the garden. When you have an outdoor fireplace, you can stay outside at night and be nice and toasty. We have a bit of decadence here in Hollywood, and we occasionally drag a carpet outside and a chandelier or two.
The impact here is mainly from these larger-than-life objects, isn't it?
In Los Angeles and Southern California and Hollywood, everything is given to hyperboil. Everything's heroic. Everything is the grand gesture.
It works well even in a very small space like this.
It can make a small space even seem bigger, rather than having lots of itsy-bitsy things, to have just a few really fell swoop gestures that can really hit home and make a big impact
The plants, I mean, some of these agaves are fantastic. Obviously, we couldn't really use those.
I like big. I just like big stuff.
Jay has carried this idea of the bold use of a limited number of plants to create a very arresting and glamorous modern garden in the Malibu Hills for his clients Michael and Cecilia Dan.
This is a garden that I designed and built about 4 years ago for some clients of mine. Their house burnt down to the ground. Everything here burnt for miles in a horrible fire. They asked me to work on the house with them. We went out looking for architects. The client and the architect wanted the house to be white, and I said, no, I really thought it should be an earth tone, and actually helped them pick out this orange, which is much more a California color and much more part of the hills here and a part of the whole feeling of this site. We have all of these succulents here, which were also chosen in harmony with the color of the house.
The house is very arresting. It gives you these sort of strong vertical planes, doesn't it? And you've matched it on the horizontal.
Yes, we've tried to use big pools of juxtaposing colors. We have the gray gazania, which we planted for the foliage, not for the flower. And then we've also planted the succulents here for the foliage and not the flower. And that we get very dramatic, broad strokes throughout the whole site. The natural surroundings are very sort of voluptuous, and we've tried to capture that voluptuousness in the curvilinear border lines and walks and all of that.
Whatever the weather this weekend, enjoy your garden. Ta-da.
Coming up next here on UK TV Gardens, Matt James has some environmentally friendly solutions for more urban regenerations in Eco Eden.